Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's great to have you here again for our next segment. This is brought to you by PM Powered, and I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, portfolio, and program management. And PM Powered is your consulting firm on project and portfolio and program management needs for your company. Today I'm going to bring you two segments because it is the holiday, so we're going to do two recordings back to back, but they'll be different recordings so you can still hear them and they'll be released at the same time. But just so in case you see the same background, it's because I'm recording both today. And today I'm bringing you stuff on new things that are being brought out into through technology, and I wanted to bring it out because it's going to have effects on project and program management, and maybe even a little bit of portfolio management. So let's talk about the first one. I've talked about it before, and it's talking about robots. So the promise and complications of domestic robots. Who knew, but there are actually competitions on robots. I guess if I had thought about it, I would have understood that. But there's a robot butler contest where they actually bring out robots to do certain things, and they have to be in crowded areas. And there's also robots that care for the elderly, and they do this quite a bit in Japan. We haven't done it quite as much in the United States, but I think especially when you think of dementia patients, when they are constantly saying the same thing over and over again. If you had a robot there that kind of looked human, it will probably help these dementia patients. And then we, of course, have the home of the future, and we're already getting some robots about that. So you think of Siri, Alexa, and Google. They already exist, and those are types of robots. No, they're not the type that move around, but they do help us. And then we also have another thing called, here in the United States, I don't know if you have them in other countries, but it's iRobot's Roomba. And the Roomba actually goes around and it vacuums your whole house, even carpet, and it can go from carpet to flooring. So we have these things coming out all over the place. But right now, is it really domestic bliss? Well, no, not right now. And there's a lot of reasons that this is coming, that there's issues. Think about the security vulnerabilities. There's already been issues with nanny cams where people have hacked into it to track children and understand and listen to you while you're in your own home. There's also lack of standardization. Just think about it. Google, Alexa, and Siri are not compatible with each other. And stuff that is made for Siri, it can't be compatible with Google. So we have all the standardization that needs to be brought into play. And it'll happen just like it did with television sets, just like it did with radio, just like it did with digital players. So it's coming. And with that, we'll have a lot of project management needs, because before we get to the standardization, each company will be doing it on its own. But as the standardization comes in, that's when we'll see things blossom. So I'm looking forward to that. So let's go to our next one. This is called Switching to Electric Vehicles Could Save the U.S. Billions, but Timing is Everything. I was kind of interested in this because we see electric vehicles coming on the market, but they're coming in slowly. And so they did an analysis of two different states, Texas and California, to see what it would do on the grid. Remember, electric cars have to be plugged in because they have to be recharged. And so they wanted to understand what it would do to the grids of these two states. And believe it or not, if all of these vehicles that would take over for driving were plugged in at low capacity times, there's no problems with the infrastructure. But if they're plugged in at high capacity times, high demand times, then the grid can't handle it. We would have brownouts and blackouts again. So what can we do about that? Well, one thing we need to do is we need to increase our aging infrastructure, our electrical grid. And that will take project managers to do that. But that also takes tens of millions of dollars to do. So it may not happen immediately. But what's another thing that can be done for this? It can be done by having, what's it called, time of use. And that's already done in California and in Austin, Texas, where if you use electricity at high peak times, then it costs you more than if you use it at lower peak times. And I can tell you that in California, if you use electricity at high peak times, it costs you a lot more than if you use it at lower peak times. So the electricity demand for 100% EV scenario, and they have these two charts in this Singularity Hub article, shows that at high peak times it goes over capacity by almost 20% of what is needed. And in California, it goes over capacity about 15%. So we've got to be careful on how we introduce electrical vehicles, because we've got to make sure that the infrastructure is there. Now, and it's safe to assume that probably in other states it won't be as taxing on the infrastructure, electrical grid, but it will be taxing on it as well, but just not as much as in Texas and in California. So let's jump to the next thing that we're going to talk about. So this is, I was amazed about this. It's how the spatial web will transform every element of our careers. And the spatial web is Web 3.0. So it's coming, folks. And it's going to affect how we do a lot of things. So first we had Web 1.0, which was static documents, and it was read-only data. So static web pages. And I remember that. I remember just being able to see static documents, and I thought it was amazing. And then we went to Web 2.0, which has been in existence for a long time when you think about it, and introduced multimedia content, interactive web applications, and participatory social media. But this is getting old. Kids, Gen Xers had this when they were growing up, and now we have the millennials, and then we had the Generation Z that's been a part of their lives. So they want something new, and this will be Web 3.0, and this will, and it's expected to go live within 2 to 5 years. And it's the convergence of 5G, artificial intelligence, VR, AR, and a trillion sensory economy will enable us to both map our physical world into virtual space and superimpose a digital data layer onto our physical environment. To me, that's just absolutely amazing. So how will it change the world? So besides doing that, what will it do for your professional development? So Web 3.0 will, with its spatial web's vast implications, will have professional training, we'll have delocalized business and the virtual workplace, and it'll have smart permissions and data security, because we always have to worry about data security, real world results. So virtual and augmented reality will be here, and it's already being done by Walmart. Walmart has bought 17,000 Oculus headsets to do training, and they do training everywhere from understanding what a Black Friday will do to their shopping rush. They also do unusual customer requests, or if you have an irate customer, how to handle it. So all of that's done now with their Oculus virtual training. Bell Helicopter is actually using VR to massively expedite development and testing of its latest aircraft. And they're partnering with Sector 5 Digital and HTC VIVE. Bell found it could concentrate a typical 6-year aircraft design process into a course of 6 months. Can you imagine that? 6 years to 6 months. That's absolutely incredible. It's turning physical mock-ups into CAD-designed virtual replicas. But beyond that, Bell is now one of the slew of companies pioneering VR pilot tests and simulations with real-world accuracy. Seated in a true-to-life virtual cockpit, pilots have now tested countless iterations of the VCX-001 in virtual flight, drawing directly into the 3D model and enacting aircraft modifications in real time. So can you imagine actually doing pilot testing and understanding what's going on and what needs to be done without sending a pilot into harm's way? Because the pilot is sitting in a virtual reality. It never leaves the ground, but the pilot feels like it's leaving the ground, and the model thinks it's leaving the ground. So that's amazing to me. They aim to give touch-based confirmation of every switch and dial activated on virtual flights. So when they might think that this one touch should go here, it really should go someplace else when you think about where the pilot is sitting. So they'll be able to actually do that before the actual aircraft are built. So when it comes to high-risk simulations, virtual and augmented reality have barely scratched the surface for testing. So I'm sure if Bell Helicopter is doing it, I'm sure the Boeings and Lockheeds will be doing it as well. Think about firefighters and all the wildfires we've had here in California. Can you imagine if firefighters can now combat virtual wildfires with new platforms like Flame, Trainer, or Target Solutions? And thanks to the expansion of medical AR and VR, services like 3D4 Medical or EchoPixel, surgeons might soon perform operations on annotated organs and magnified incision sites, speeding up reaction times and vastly improving precision. Can you imagine surgery being more precise than it is now? Because they'll have assisted augmented reality and VR to help the surgeons with their actual surgical skills. But perhaps most urgent is Web 3.0, and its VR interface will offer an immediate solution for today's constant industry turnover and large-scale re-education demands. So re-educating or educating a new employee is very, very expensive. And we have a high turnover rate in all of our industries now. So with virtual reality, training goes down not to nothing, but it goes down dramatically. So it doesn't make it the long pole in the tent, and it makes it not the most expensive part about hiring somebody. So VR educational facilities with exact replicas of anything from large industrial equipment to minute circuitry will soon give anyone a second chance at the 21st century job opportunity. So think about this. We'll be educating for life. And if I wanted to change industries, I now don't have to worry about being actually employed in that. I can do virtual reality and say, hey, yeah, I know how to do that because I actually did it in virtual reality for over 6 months and without having to be employed in that industry. So can you imagine people are going to be able to, if they're upset or don't really enjoy what they're doing, they can now go into virtual reality and see how they enjoy something else and maybe go into doing that. So we'll be people jumping from job to job, and they'll be absolutely experienced in it because they'll have virtual reality and augmented reality. Want to be a plasma physicist and play around with a virtual nuclear fusion reactor? Well, guess what? Now you'll be able to simulate results and test out different tweaks. Isn't that amazing? So there'll be a rise of virtual workplace and data and digital data integrity. We'll be able to put blockchain on top of it so we can follow it because we have to worry about what's going on and understand things of that nature because we have to keep the security within it. So there's this one company called eXp Reality, and it's amazing to me. They're already using the Spatial 3.0. They launched on the heels of 2008 financial crisis. Can you believe that? eXp Reality beats the odds, going public this past May and surpassing a $1 billion market cap on day one of trading. But what are they doing? So let me read some of the things that they're doing. Opting for demonetized virtual model, eXp's founder Glenn Sanford decided to ditch brick and mortar from the get-go, instead building out an online virtual campus for employees, contractors, and thousands of agents. And after years of hosting team meetings, training seminars, and even agent discussions with potential buyers through 2D digital interfaces, eXp's virtual headquarters went spatial. So it's now 3D. So they're using Web 3.0 technology. What eXp's primary corporate value? Fun, says that Glenn Sanford's employees love their jobs. So in a bid to transition from 2D interfaces to immersive 3D work experiences, virtual platform Verbilla built out the company's office space in VR, unlocking indefinite scaling potential and an extraordinary new precedent. It's foregoing any physical locations for a centralized VR campus. eXp Reality has essentially thrown out all overhead and entered a lucrative market with barely any upfront cost. So delocalizing with VR, and you can now hire anyone with internet access right next door or on the other side of the planet. Redesign your corporate office every month. Throw an ocean view office or impromptu conference room for client meetings, and forget about guzzled up hours in traffic. Throw in the spatial web's fundamental blockchain. So remember, I was saying you had to have some security. So blockchain-based data layer and now cryptographically secured virtual IDs will let you validate colleagues' identities, avatars we will soon inhabit. This becomes critically important for spatial information logs, keeping incorruptible records of who's present at a meeting, which data each person has access to, and AI translated reports of everything discussed and contracts agreed to. But what else is interesting about this? So as data gets added and linked to any given employee's office, conference room, or security system, we might then access online merge offline environments and information through augmented reality. Imagine showing up at your building's concierge and your AR glasses automatically check you into the building, authenticate your identity, and pull up any reminders you've linked up to this specific location. Or you stop by a friend's office and his smart security system lets you know he'll arrive in an hour. You need to book a public conference room? That's already been scheduled by another firm's marketing team. Offer to pay them a fee, and once accepted, a smart transaction will automatically deliver a payment to their company account. With blockchain verified digital identities, spatially logged data, and virtually manifest information, business logistics take a fraction of the time, operations go seamless, and corporate data will be safer than ever. Can you imagine that? But you'll need project managers to do all of that because that involves technology, and technology doesn't happen on its own. There's got to be project managers and teams to get this all done. And while eXp is doing it, it doesn't have it all done. Blockchain is not incorporated into it yet. So all of this will have to be done, and the technology will have to be understood to make sure that it happens seamlessly. So project managers, are you out there? Are you ready to do it? And program managers have to do it as well. So I'm looking forward to this, because what are some of the final thoughts that Singularity Hub has on Web 3.0? So let me read you this. While converging technology slash the lifespan of Fortune 500 companies bring on the rise of vast new industries and transform the job market, Web 3.0 is changing the way we work, where we work, and who we work with. Can you imagine that? I'm guessing that in the future there won't even be brick and mortar places. It'll all be done from your home or wherever you want to be, or from vacation if you want to be it. And you'll see people switching from industry to industry and job style to job style. It'll be able to accommodate everything that people want to do. Okay, so let's go to the last thing for this week. And this one is about electric planes. We talked about electric vehicles, so let's go to electric planes. And this one's a little bit more catchy. I was absolutely amazed by some of the data that was presented in this article. And right now, because batteries weigh so much and need to be charged, right now battery technology is not going to work for planes, because it is just too heavy, and the batteries will have to be charged so often that you'll be up and down going across the East Coast so many times that it's just not lucrative. Also, believe it or not, the carbon dioxide emissions by using today's batteries would be more than the CO2 emissions by using jet fuel. So that's kind of interesting to me. I don't understand all the dynamics around it. So it has been said that what's going to happen is that jet fuel is going to have, well, a barrel of fuel, the price for a barrel of fuel will have to go up of over $100 for it to, and the price of batteries will have to go down to 3 to 4 cents per megawatt. And that's not going to happen. So on its own, we're going to have to, companies and governments are going to have to push that through to make it happen. But we need to do something because carbon dioxide is going to be, as we've already proven, is detrimental to our economy, to our well-being on this planet. And I know that I want to have a good planet for my grandchildren and their grandchildren. But right now, that's not going to happen with the type of batteries that we have. Right now, an all-electric vehicle, let's see, today there's 250 watt hours per kilogram to 800 watt hours per kilogram on a battery. And that would make it possible to create an all-electric aircraft able to carry 150 passengers up to 600 nautical miles, which could replace half of the global aircraft departures. Boosting this to stretch goal of 1,200 nautical miles could replace more than 80% of our departures. Believe it or not, that would help our CO2 emissions. But right now, we're not there yet. And again, unless the government and companies get on board with this, it's not going to happen quickly because our battery technology is stagnating. I know Elon Musk is doing a lot for batteries, but he hasn't gotten the batteries to this extent where they're going to be used by aircraft. So stay tuned. We need project managers to help on this as well, because a lot of things would have to change in the aircraft. A whole mindset would have to change on pilots, as well as I'm sure having to redesign and reconfigure the aircraft as for load balance, because where do you put these heavy batteries? So this has been brought to you by PM Powered, and I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project program and portfolio management. And we're going to end this one right now and start the next segment. And if you want to see this one again, please go to PM Current and follow me on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook to make sure that you understand all of this. And if you missed anything or didn't quite understand it, please contact me by email. I'm wanda@pmpowered.com. Have a great week, and Merry Christmas to those of you that do celebrate Christmas, and Happy Holidays to those of you that celebrate other things.